And welcome everyone to the Go.live Gaming Podcast on the 9th of... Are we already in August? I feel like I would do this every time. It doesn't feel like we're in August, but apparently we're in August, 9th of August. I am Saj, also known as Christian, and I'm your usual host, main host on this channel. Or, well, yeah, maybe on the channel as well, but on the show. That was supposed to say. And we also have James, also known as Drainus, with us today.
Hello, everybody.
Hello. How's the heat treating you? Has it calmed down? And
it has. In
the
fact,
great
actually,
British...
in the last sort of 10 minutes, it has bucketed it down with rain. I'm just looking out the window and I can see many puddles, and we haven't seen any puddles for like the last 6 months. It's been incredible.
Yeah, I mean, usually when it's summer, at least here in Sweden, we're like, oh, we want the heat. It's always raining. So, such poor weather. But now it's like, please rain. We're dying over here. We're literally drying out thanks to the heat. So yeah, every time. But we always like every time it's been raining now, there's been thunderstorms as well. So, but I guess that's what you gotta have to deal with the heat and all whatnot.
We're getting all the extremes of weather.
Yeah, really.
Actually, really getting all the extremes of weather. It's quite disconcerting on one level.
Global warming, I say. I don't know.
Yes, very much so. Unless, of course, you're the president of the United States, at which point
that's true. I mean, we all know that global warming is just a conspiracy theory on disregarding or whatever scientists.
I also know that my back garden has been turned into a desert.
Yeah, just one more side note. I was actually watching the news, the weather, and they were showing this before and after pictures of Europe, and before this heat stroke or heat wave, the entire Europe aerial view or satellite view was green, and after this heat or during the heat wave, almost the entire EU had turned brown. So that's just that was just such a clear picture of what everyone is struggling with right now.
We are now a continent of scrubland
and
dry grass.
Yeah. All right. So we usually talk about Anthem, Bioware, and EA, and we're going to talk about Bioware and Anthem. I guess. Mainly focus on Bioware this time around. And we're currently live on Facebook, Twitch, YouTube, and Mixer. So if you don't have time, to stay with us the entire show, it's going to be uploaded to YouTube straight after this. Or I guess you're going to have to wait like half an hour or whatever for it to render and whatnot. But I feel like that is something that you will be able to survive, my dear.
Oh, the impatience of youth.
Agreed. And, of course, if you want to listen to the audio version while you're doing other stuff, like dying in the heat, if you're still having issues with that, then you will be able to listen to us on SoundCloud or on iTunes or your favorite podcast app of choice, or on Stitcher. I've confirmed that we're on Stitcher as well.
Whoop, whoop.
Whoop, whoop. Also,
no
if you
being stitched up by Stitcher.
Yeah, agreed. Also, if you enjoy the show, please leave us an email at feedback@gunsofanthem.com. Always fun to get emails from people because it takes a little bit more effort than writing a comment. So, what we're going to talk about today is a couple of things. Let's see if I have where I have my links. So there was a new blog post by Casey Hudson talking about some stuff. So we're going to talk about that, obviously. There was a interview with James Ohlen of Bioware fame, who has recently left the studio to chase other projects and other stuff. And we're going to talk about that because he seems quite genuine in the interview and why he left, and maybe why I'm getting hints towards why others are leaving Bioware as well. We've seen a couple of Bioware veterans or people that have worked for the studio, or been with the studio since the early days, for like 15 to almost 20 years, the first titles. And those people are steadily, or some of them are steadily going elsewhere when it comes to professional pursuits. So
it certainly seems to be something that's been highlighted recently.
yeah, certainly. I mean, why this is something that people are talking about a lot is that, yeah, on paper it doesn't look good that a lot of people are, or a lot of developers are leaving before Anthem is even launched. It's something that puts up a warning sign for a lot of people, and I totally understand that. But I don't know. We'll just have to see if there might be a reason for that, or like they're obviously not saying like, yeah, this game isn't for me, so I'm leaving. They're obviously giving you other reasons, because I don't think they can say that, because that would sort of be a
have my own thoughts on it, but I'll leave them until we actually get into the meat of it. But
yeah, I mean, it would be a PR nightmare if they'd like straight up said, I don't like Bioware anymore, I don't want to work there anymore, Anthem is going to be crap. I mean, they wouldn't work in the industry.
Sinking ship.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. First off, just
everyone who's left is towed to the company line so far.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. So I guess you have to take all of those interviews with a grain of salt, but there's still some genuine comments there that you can take a lot from. One thing that we can just address before going forward, that is regarding EA and also Bioware, since a lot of Bioware titles are under the brand of EA, and that is that EA quietly just killed their free games program. So this is something that they have had for a couple of years now on Origin, not only on Origin Access, but this was also a feature for Origin Access customers, is that you got old games for free every now and again. So there was a lot of cool games on that free, not subscription. You actually had to go on to Origin and download the game, and then you had it for free forever. But if you missed that window, then you wouldn't get the game for free. And I think like Mass Effect 2 has been on there. I know Peggle is one, quite fun little game. And a lot of like Plants vs. Zombies for another example. Dungeon Keeper has been on there. Theme Hospital has been on there. So there's been
Theme Hospital.
Yeah, so there's been a lot of great games going through this free program, and with the launch of their Premier program, which they just released, the Origin Access page has actually just replaced the free program page on their website. So that just disappeared quietly, and they made a comment that, yeah, well, this is basically just not happening anymore. When they got, I think it was, I'm not entirely sure which news site it was that reached out to them, but yeah, they weren't too interested to actually address the issue. They was like, it's an outdated program, it's not giving us too much anymore, basically. So, and yeah, well, when they're moving towards these subscription-based services where you get a lot of games for free or with the service, I guess it makes sense to just not have like 5-6 different systems. 2 is easier to keep track of, I guess.
Yes, and it does make them easier to keep track of when you're charging people for their use. So this EA Origin access method, it was essentially the same thing as Xbox Gold. That they provide. It gives you the free games, and there were several discrepancies regarding how long the games were available for. There were some games which are quite small and not very well known, which were available for a number of months, and there were other games that are quite large games that were available for free, but only for a day. Just the one day. So you had a very small window, which granted it was free, but you had to be pretty quick on the trigger in order to grab those. And yeah, so they've decided to turn that one off, and I mean, it's fairly obvious, isn't it? I mean, it's been turned off because it's not bringing new Origin customers onto the platform, and therefore it's not increasing the revenue. And if it's not increasing the revenue, what's the point in funding it? Because you need to pay for the service in order for it to be there.
Yeah.
So it's, yeah, okay, it's dead. It's not a huge loss to the gaming industry. Let's be brutally honest.
No.
But it's a shame. You know, anything that takes away free games is a shame because we all like free games.
Yeah, I mean, it was one of the few goodwill programs that EA had rolling, and you certainly, or everybody knows that EA needs some goodwill. So
We've certainly seen a fair few people are likening this to essentially EA cutting out its own heart.
yeah, basically. So
The soul is gone. No more. No more free stuff. Pay
no
me.
more
Small
free
person.
stuff.
Pay me. Pay me.
Yeah. So yeah, that's not a thing anymore. As we said, it's not the biggest thing, but it's still something that I think is worth a mention before we
Absolutely.
go forward. Let's see. So I think we can start with the blog post update from Casey Hudson, and then we move over to the more meaty interview with James Ohlen. Ohlen, not Olam. So I'm not gonna read the entire thing. I'm not entirely sure why I'm adding syllables that are not supposed to be there. The first thing that he mentions is that Anthem won over 30 awards at E3, or during E3, including Best Action Game and Best PC Game. These awards are a little bit obscure, since how do you give awards to a game that isn't actually out yet? But I guess it's sort of the best of show, or best at show, or whatever you want to call it. So these rewards are basically what kind of games do we have on the show floor, which is the best of those. So that is something that gives us a good indication that it's actually getting the best action game. Probably speaks towards the game being a little bit more action orientated, as we've spoken about before, than RPG orientated, like many other Bioware titles have been in the past. And yeah, well, a lot of people have said that the action was great and awesome and really cool. I've read many like opinion pieces, I guess you could call it, of people actually being on the floor and getting hands on with Anthem, and its overall praise that it's a great game, but they didn't get any story, which is something that I'm really curious about. Story almost always trumps gameplay mechanics for me. I really like getting into a deep and rich universe, and yeah.
I like to think that they're holding off on that for the full release.
Yeah.
No spoilers.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what I'm going with anyway.
Yeah.
Likewise, it's an incredibly important aspect of the game, and to think that the game's going to come out with very little story, sort of like Call of Duty levels of story, is something that I don't really want to entertain too much.
No. Agreed. So, let's see. I guess we can continue. I'm just going to fix the video frame there for anyone that saw that it wasn't really looking as it should have. And he goes on with Anthem's executive producer Mark Dara has been doing a tireless job answering questions on Twitter, so I won't attempt to expand on that here. So he's basically only answering one question here, one of the most frequently asked, which weren't explored fully in the demo, and it had to do with story and character. Specifically, how can there be agency of your story in a living world that you share with friends? Which is it's a good question, because that's been a big focus of Bioware titles in the past. And this is his answer. It's a great question, and in my opinion, our solution to this design challenge is one of the most innovative things about Anthem. We talked briefly at EA Play about how the solution is called Our World, My Story. In the dynamic open world, everything is experienced in real time by all Anthem players. Day-night, weather, and world-scale events that shape the ongoing narrative of the setting. This is our world, which we share as a player community. Then you return to Fort Tarsis, and that's actually a single-player experience. And it's where you spend time developing relationships, making choices, and seeing consequences. That's the my story part. So, yeah. I think
it's a concept that a lot of people have been trying over the years, and not many of them with a huge amount of success, largely due to technology limitations.
Yeah.
But yeah, so the idea of having this, massive world that everyone is a part of, but everyone's having their own unique experience is a challenge.
Yeah.
But it's certainly an
Agreed.
admirable goal.
I just hope they can make that concept work. If it works, I'm not even sure if it works on paper. Yeah, you're gonna have this little single player hub, and then you're gonna do all the missions with your pals out in whatever. And from what I've heard, I think there's some slight difference in dialogue when you're out. Like the world will probably look almost the same for everyone, but there's going to be some slight dialogue changes in what you hear. The context is probably going to be the same, but yeah, the NPC might say it in a slightly different tone or whatever. So,
yeah, as I say, I haven't seen anyone successfully do this before, so it'll be very interesting to see how they finally manage to do it in the full release of the game.
yeah,
It's exciting. It certainly is exciting.
I agreed. I
Let's
mean,
go for it.
yeah,
let's dive heading into it and let's see if they can actually do it. They've said that's what they're aiming for.
yeah,
There's the target.
yeah,
Off you go, Bioware.
yeah, agreed. Like, but if you think about it, when it comes to like Mass Effect, for example, like there's not really the world itself wasn't, or it changed on very sparse occasions. The things that changed were basically the NPCs in those areas. So when you think about it in that way, I mean, this is not that different actually, but yeah.
If that's the line they choose to go down, then no, that has been done before.
Yeah. So it feels like it's one of the most innovative things about Anthem. I don't know how innovative it actually is. It doesn't sound too innovative if you compare it to other systems that are already existing. But yeah, we'll just have to see how that progresses. He actually addresses something that is quite interesting as well. I was thinking about James Ohlen when it comes to Star Wars: Old Republic. Casey here is addressing that they're working on some amazing things for Star Wars: The Old Republic. So if you're still into that game, I sort of fell out of it pretty quickly. I already have World of Warcraft, and I didn't want to play another one. So.
As has been said by every other MMORPG player in the last 10 years.
Yeah. And he's also addressing that they're hearing loud and clear the interest in Dragon Age and more Mass Effect. And he says, so rest assured that we have some teams hidden away working on some secret stuff that I think you'll really like. We're just not ready to talk about any of it for a little while. I'm just hoping that it's not like a teen. When I hear this stuff like we're working on a secret project, my fears are always like we're working on a really cool mobile version of the game or mobile title. I don't want mobile. I know it's a huge market, but mobile gaming is never gonna be as cool as console and PC gaming. It's never gonna be. So that's just my. I always get a little weary when I hear it.
When we were growing up and we were learning how to game properly, you couldn't because there wasn't a mobile platform for doing anything, really.
Yeah.
But now there is, and it's got its own unique genre. And we've seen, the new Command and Conquer title. I hesitate to call it a title; it's more of an abhorrent mess. But
Yeah.
the new Command and Conquer release, which is entirely mobile designed and put forward in that way, it's been designed purely because that's the growing market. That's where the 12-year-olds are going
Yeah.
once they've finished swearing at each other on Call of Duty.
Yeah, agreed. So let's see if there was something else. Yeah, he's basically just saying that he's really proud of the team, and he just want to thank everyone for supporting us or supporting them, and they're gonna show some stuff on PAX in Seattle later this month. I'm not entirely sure if they're gonna show us anything new, but yeah, they're gonna have.
PAX?
It just says later this month. I don't have the exact date.
Someone in chat, tell us when Seattle PAX is.
Yeah. So, that was the blog post from Casey Hudson. And now we shall move over to the Game Informer interview with James Ohlen.
This is quite an interesting article, this one.
Yeah, it really is.
The way it reads, I mean, James, like all the other Bioware devs who have given art interviews after they've left the company in recent months, has very much towed the line. He's not slagged off the company, he's not slagged off the publisher, he's not called his boss a twat or anything like that. And the way that it reads very much that he's a chap who is now looking to work doing what he would like to do, what he enjoys in, what he finds entertaining, and what he's passionate about, rather than having a job for the sake of needing to pay the bills, which is a very privileged situation to be in, and I kind of wish I was there myself, but you never know.
Yeah. Basically, we're gonna try to do this step by step here, but yeah, that's basically the gist of it. And I think we can take some stuff from this and what's been said from other Bioware veterans that have left the studio. It seems like they all want to work on other stuff, a little smaller stuff, than what they're currently doing. So. Let's just read this out, shall we? The question goes as follows. I know these decisions don't come easily for people, especially when you have tenure that you have there. So how long have you been wrestling with this decision to step away from Bioware, and what ultimately compelled you to pull the trigger? So what he says here is that he had the chance to do some creative stuff again, and that was basically what sparked his love for games again. He's been working sort of strictly with having sort of a management role and not really doing many or much on the creative side. And he also says this, which I think is a sentence to remember. Working with 50 or 100 people is a lot different than working with 500 or 1,000 people. And this is something that I think is good to remember when we're talking about Bioware, because the good old titles that a lot of us really liked, the earlier, like the first Mass Effect and the Baldur's Gate series and the Star Wars stuff that they've done, that has been done with a smaller team. And I feel like that sort of translates into the game. It feels a little bit more personal. It feels like the people who have done this game have had a little closer of a relationship. I feel like there's something there that you can say that's the case, and that's what we're gonna have to see with Anthem, since, like he's saying, that it's different to work with 500 or 1,000 people. So the team on working on Anthem is probably pretty huge. And yeah, I'm just worried if the personal Bioware touch is going to be there or not with that large of a team. But I really hope that the current management can pull that off. I think it's a really hard task.
Mm.
And I also think that is something that is a detriment to game studios or game developers growing really large. I think it should be hard to like keep that personal touch when so many people need to be on the same page.
Yeah, it's down to the running of the business ultimately. At the end of the day, it's the
Yeah.
people who are at the top are responsible for embodying and taking on that company message, that company ethos, and then translating that down the tiers into the workforce
Yeah.
essentially, and having them believe in the vision that is the company.
Yeah.
And yeah, naturally, a company that's grown 10 times the size is going to be markedly different. And as you say, you can tell that from the games that they produced. Some of the older games, Baldur's Gate and the original Mass Effect, things like that, were they almost had the feel of, I'm not going to say an indie studio, but they had that sort of more personal touch, as you mentioned. And as uh, as success comes, the money comes in, the publishers come in, the expectations go up, and as the expectations go up, what you need to deliver increases, and that means you need more people. And when you have a larger company with more people, you need more processes, you need more control, you need more oversight, and
Yeah.
naturally, it's the growth of the company. Um, I'll let you go on to the next bit because I've got another bit to say about the Bioware ethos, but I'll leave that until later on.
Yeah. I just think like I understand the company environment that you want to grow large and do cool stuff, but maybe sometimes you should just put a cap on it, not try to grow too large. I don't know. But
That's up to the people at the top, isn't it?
yeah, yeah,
For
yeah,
those who just want to stick with that small time vision, go for it, absolutely. But for those that want to really succeed and want to make the big bucks, you've got to embrace the larger ethos in order to do it.
yeah,
Unless, of course, you're going to, create battlegrounds, at which point doesn't matter. You can
no,
make all the money you need
yeah,
and
yeah,
retire off the income.
yeah, basically.
And
So,
cry.
this question was one of the more interesting in light of what we do here. With you taking more of a hands-on creative role with Anthem, why leave in the middle of development? Was your role winding down as the game was ramping toward release? And this is his answer. I had stepped in to help out on parts of Anthem, but my role was not a huge one. I was working as a narrative director for a period of time, about 6 months, but then I handed most of the leadership to Kathleen Rootsert, who is the lead writer on Anthem. I wasn't really in the place where I was like, do I want to go back to doing administrative director of design types of things? And he wasn't. He was in a place where he wanted to go back into doing creative stuff, as I said before. And this seems like this is basically what most of the people have said. There was one of the uh, biggest names when it came to writing. Now I lost his name, but he left a little while ago and said basically the same thing. He wanted to work on his own projects again. Um, and yeah, I feel like these guys started out in a place where Bioware was a small, like really close thing, and now it's a big, huge company with a lot of people. And I feel like I would probably be the same. I would probably miss those golden days where you had that small, passionate team working on a project together, not had to manage like 1,000 people. Let's see here. He had another statement that I thought was pretty good. Let's see if we can find that one. He talks about he wanting to stay in Austin, which, yeah, whatever. I'm not entirely sure. He says that there's a huge, lively nerd community in Austin. Haven't really
Yeah,
gotten
it's
a.
called Rooster Teeth.
Yeah, that's true. Um, Let's
If
see.
I could just sort of
Yeah, go
play a
for it.
little bit devil's advocate, the sort of the relatively high staff turnover at BioWare, which almost everybody is putting down to the growth in the company size, and the changing in sort of how the company works as a result of that. You could say that I'm not entirely sure that I fully buy that. Yes, BioWare was a much smaller operation,
Yeah,
sort of, 10, 12 years ago, and now it's huge. But it's been a very large company for a very significant period of time now.
true.
Even when, Mass Effect 2 was released back in, someone's going to slate me for this if I get it wrong, but I want to say 2009,
Mass Effect 2 or Mass Effect 1.
2.
I can look that up for you.
Um, and, even by that point, EA come on board. They put a heavy amount of investment into BioWare, and they put a heavy
2010.
amount of 2010.
Yeah.
Damn it, so close. They put a heavy amount of investment into BioWare. They increased the resourcing to try and deliver Mass Effect 2 as a much larger game and a much more complete project than Mass Effect 1 was. Um, and so that was 8 years ago
Yeah.
now. Mass Effect 2. So BioWare has been a large company for a long period of time,
Yeah.
and for a load of
Well, that's
people to
true.
suddenly say, no, the company's, I want to get back to being a small company, it just sort of feels like you could have made that decision a few years ago. Nothing is, there hasn't been a huge drastic change in the size of BioWare over the last sort of 2 years. It's
Well,
been large for a long period of time, and if you didn't like the large company ethos and the
yeah.
way the large company works, you would have known that.
Yeah.
Now, maybe you want to flip it the other way. It may well be that the actual employees themselves needed the time to actually realize that this wasn't what they wanted, and they wanted to get back to how they used to work.
Yeah.
And yeah, absolutely fair dues. But it's yeah, there's just a slight niggling doubt that I have in the back of my mind, which is, this isn't a new thing.
No. Well, yeah, there are like I would probably like when we're talking about Mass Effect Andromeda, for example. We know that there was a lot of things going on at like this wasn't the main Bioware headquarters that developed Mass Effect Andromeda, but we know that it was troubled times for them during that development. A lot of stuff changed, a lot of people quit. They had to getting new people, and that was why they basically had to redo the entire project 2 years before its actual release date. And 2 years for such a big title is never going to really work. And that's
Mhm.
probably why the game felt as rushed as it actually did. And like that climate change, troubled times like that for the last 5 or 6 years, probably I would say is something that is more off putting for the long standing or the veterans of the company. I would probably say like, yeah, the climate has changed a little. I don't really feel like it's the same thing anymore, and I want to try to get back to that thing which it was before. Like I don't really want to dabble in this anymore. But I'm not really getting the feeling that I want from this company anymore, and that's why I'm leaving. I would say that that's probably more reasonable than everybody just leaving for other projects.
That's possible.
Yeah,
That is entirely possible. It's, again, if you're basically, you've been told, if you're going to do a press conference after you leave, don't slag the company off because
yeah,
otherwise we'll rip you to shreds, sort of thing. Then you don't necessarily want to say that there were a whole load of director level decisions that were made that made everyone feel disenfranchised and disillusioned, and we all
yeah.
wanted to leave as a result of it. So it could be a cover for saying that. But even though that was still 2016 when those
Yeah,
decisions were being made, when
yeah. That's true.
so, even then, I mean, James
Yeah,
Ohlen, he says in this interview that he handed in his notice in March or April, and he actually left at the start of June. He's just been waiting until E3 and everything has all died down, and there's been enough time that he can say this without it being attributed and
Yeah.
causing any negative reaction on that front.
Yeah. So without us actually speculating too much, I mean, we really don't know the actual facts, but we only know what these developers have said. And the question here was from Game Informer: given that the culture over at Bioware is intact and the studio is still working on these big, amazing projects, to what do you attribute the talent bleed at Bioware? It certainly has been a steady stream of veteran developers leaving for a while now. And his answer goes as follows: when you have been at a studio for a long time, sometimes you just want to strike out on your own and do your own thing. The fact is, with the bigger and bigger games, people are working with larger and larger teams. Working on the development of Star Wars Old Republic, I was the game director, which meant I had the most power, but I often felt like I was the captain of the Titanic, and I could just steer a teeny bit if I put all my efforts into it. And I like this picture he's painting of steering the Titanic, and probably the frustration of suddenly managing such a large team that you really don't feel like you have enough control over it anymore.
It's a beautiful analogy, isn't it?
Yeah. A lot of people who have been leaving were there for 10, 15, or even more years. And sometimes you just need a change. Other times people want to get back to their getting their hands dirty with creative stuff. And it's really difficult to do that when you're on a big team of 1,000 people and you're supposed to be delivering hundreds of millions of dollars in revenue. There's a lot of responsibility there that kind of gets in the way of your ability to get into the creative process. For me personally, it's working on a book. It's really a break from being in the industry, and that I'm going to take for I don't know how long, maybe a year, maybe less, blah, blah, blah. Let's see. I do want to feel a little bit more like back in the Baldur's Gate days when the team was 40 people in size instead of what it is now. And when the expectations were, I remember the expectations for Baldur's Gate 1 was maybe that we sold half as much as Fallout 1. We maybe sell 100,000 copies and get to do more games. So it was a lot different. And this is just what we've been discussing on back and forth. Like
Absolutely.
He just doesn't feel comfortable being at Bioware anymore because it's too big. It's not really his cup of tea.
Yeah. He wants to get back to doing what he originally started out doing, which is working in games for the love of actually building games, for creating things, for watching something grow.
Yeah.
And having a proper impact on that as well, as he mentions, being a captain and steering a ship, as rather piloting a small dinghy.
Yeah. It's obviously going to be a lot different, and if that's not your thing, it's not your thing. So yeah, I mean, most of these guys just started out as gamers that wanted to create cool experiences, and not all of them, I would guess, wanted to be big directors or managers of insanely huge teams. So
some people like doing that, some people don't. It's difficult to have that as something you can really sort of teach. You've got it or you haven't.
Yeah. There is another one where they talk about Anthem. The question goes as follows: Anthem shooting felt really good. I was really encouraged by that. But coming out of E3, there's a lot of this. There's this sense amongst a particular segment of the Bioware community that this game isn't for them. They want more classic Bioware games with branching conversations, romance, etc. Did you all make the choice to move away from that consciously, or is that just how the project evolved over time? And his answer is, I think one of the things that Bioware has been really good at is sorry about this. I think one of the things about Bioware has been really good at it, really weird sentence, which has allowed it to survive for more than 2 decades, is taking risks. Oh, that makes more sense. Is taking risks and making new and different things. Anthem has been doing things differently than the traditional model than anything you've seen from Dragon Age or Mass Effect back to the Baldur's Gate part of being systems-based. Anthem's different from that. Then again, Neverwinter Nights was quite different when it came out in 2002, and obviously Star Wars The Old Republic was quite different when it came out in 2011. So he's basically just stating like, yeah, Bioware has always been evolving slowly and tried new things, and this is just another step in what they want to do with the company. And yeah, I guess that makes sense.
Absolutely. And to be honest, the more I hear this question, because you hear it a lot being bandied around,
Yeah.
and the more I hear it, the more it annoys me. And his answer is actually very good, because I always liken this to a music band. So
Yeah.
a music band will quite regularly, it will release a new album. If that album has a different tone, a different setting, a slightly different genre to how their previous albums have worked, a lot of the fan base will rebel quite heavily against it, and there will be a lot of negative reaction because it's not what people are expecting.
Yeah.
But that's that's the life cycle of the band, and the games in a games company like BioWare is no different. The
Yeah.
technology is evolving, and they evolve, and what they make evolves, and it's natural. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's natural to change, and I know people are inherently they're sort of suspicious of change because there are unknowns. Um, but
Yeah, but
this
that's
is
that.
how a company evolves, and this is just what it needs to do. So don't slate it for doing what it has to.
Yeah, and also one thing, like me personally being a creative person, I like trying out new things. I
Mm.
generally don't want to stick with the same kind of format and the same kind of stuff forever, because then I get bored. And I think that's like most creative people, just to get new challenges and try new things. That is what pushes you forward. So, making something slightly different from what you've done before just makes sense in order to get a fresh perspective and try new things and get into the mood to trying to make new cool things. If you try to make the same concept over and over, it's obviously going to degrade in quality over time because it's hard to stay inspired to make that the same level of quality that the first 2-3 games had. I mean, I think that's just the part of the creative process, really.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally agree. Really do.
Yeah.
And it's
So
absolutely fine that BioWare are taking a different tack.
yeah, but then again, I'm for one, I'm a big fan of. I know you are as well. For Mass
Mhm.
Effect, for example, and I'm also a big fan of Dragon Age, and I love those old systems. I want 1,000 games with those systems and that quality of story. But yeah, I'm probably not gonna get that because that isn't too realistic. That's just the way of things.
There's
So
a good old saying, you can have too much of a good thing.
yeah, yeah, basically. Um. All right. Let's see. I kind of like this question as well. Controversially, do you have. No, not controversially. Conversely, do you have any regrets? Anything you wish you were able to push through while you were there at Bioware? So his answer is this. With Star Wars The Old Republic, I wish that I pushed a little bit more towards making it Star Wars or Knights of the Old Republic online rather than Star Wars World of Warcraft. A lot of the feedback that we got when Star Wars The Old Republic launched was, or when it came out, was, hey, we wanted Knights of the Old Republic online, something that was more similar to that game, that was more traditional in the World of Warcraft sense. I can see where that was coming from, but I'm still proud of where Star Wars The Old Republic got to. But yeah, I mean, if they went for Knights of the Old Republic online, I think that would have been more popular. Really, I like yeah. It was sort of the end of the wave. Like we need to make a Warcraft clone because that was or everybody tried to make it because World of Warcraft was so successful, and I guess the Old Republic was sort of at the end of that wave. And I guess it made sense in some way, but it felt when I played the game, it just didn't feel too. It didn't feel that original. It felt like, yeah, as I said before, if I want to play this game, I can play World of Warcraft because I'm more invested in that. Weirdly enough, like yeah, if you're a Star Wars fan, you're probably pretty invested in that story. But I'm personally more invested in the World of Warcraft story, and for me, it just makes more sense if I have two games that are basically the same thing. I'm gonna play the thing that I'm more invested in. So, and
Absolutely, yeah. It was. You may want to say it was a strategic error in the design of the game.
yeah,
It was an error that so many people made to their cost.
yeah,
Yeah, the number of Memorphic games that came out and just flopped heavily because they weren't what everyone liked.
yeah,
Everyone liked Warcraft because Warcraft was very good at what it did. And
yeah,
so when other people tried to do the same thing and it wasn't as good as Blizzard's offering, everyone went, we're going to play the better game if you don't mind because it's better. And yeah, so within a few months, every game went free to play and then slowly died.
yeah. So ending this off, I think it's a little bit interesting. This is something that we can talk a little bit more on before we get to the last segment of the show. They're getting to a little bit more of a personal. I guess it is all personal since it's an interview, but more of what he does outside the business side of things. So the question is, now that you presumably got a little bit more free time on your hands than you did when you were in the trenches as Bioware, do you have a backlog of games you were planning to dive into? And he says that he caught up on Zelda for the Switch, and he really, really liked that. He's looking forward to Red Dead Redemption 2. He's looking forward to CD Projekt Red's Cyberpunk 2077. So he seems like, yeah, he's all for the RPGs, man. And I guess that's not too
Fair enough.
weird.
He talks a lot in the interview about how much he enjoys Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah, I sort of jumped that part, but yeah, they talk a lot about Dungeons and Dragons. But I feel like that is also a stepping stone for most of these developers, at least that with companies that started in the 90s and whatnot, making games. It feels like most of them started out playing D&D with friends, and they were like, "Oh yeah, this is really cool. We need to start. We need to do something on our own." Something or that is our own little beast, and yeah,
And then you ended up with Baldur's Gate.
yeah, and which
Hey,
was
very good it was too, if I remember correctly.
yeah. I played Baldur's Gate 2 straight through with a friend, and that was a great time, great time. So really enjoy that. Let's see here. I lost my thread. It was basically on the backlog. There we go. And do you keep up with RPGs in recent years? And if so, which one have impressed you the most? So again, Zelda was incredible. Skyrim, another amazing game. Witcher 3, loved Pillars of Eternity. And let's see. Yeah, he's giving some credit to Obsidian as well. I really need to check out Pillars of Eternity. It's just that I checked out Divinity 2, Divinity, the original Sin 2, and that is also a, do you call it an isometric? That's, yeah, the top-down view RPG sort of stuff.
Yes.
With the isometric view.
Pseudo 3D style view.
Yeah. And I thought personally that I was over those kinds of games, but I clearly wasn't.
No such luck, sir.
They're still really fun, which sort of what makes me want a new Fallout in that. I don't know. Did you play the first two Fallout games, Fallout 1 and 2?
No, I didn't.
You have missed out, man.
Everlasting shame, I didn't.
You have missed out, man. Those are some of the greatest memories I have from gaming. Great games. And I love Fallout 3 and New Vegas as well. Fallout 4 didn't really speak to me that much, but I would, now that I played Divinity Originals 2, I was like, yeah, a new Fallout game in that vein. Heck yeah, I want that.
Well, you talk about isometric games. Theme Hospital I'm going to get back to it. And I know
Yeah.
Chromatism mentioned it in the comment that he thought Dungeon Keeper was better, and no, it isn't. Theme Hospital beats Dungeon Keeper.
Yeah.
Sorry, just does.
Yeah. Josh says in the chat that he was installing Fallout 1 yesterday. I've done that. I just have a hard time going back to those old games. I would like some sort of remake of that though.
Or just to bring the technology up.
Yeah. I mean, I think that could make sense. But Bioware hasn't have they remade or remastered any of their titles so far? They really haven't,
No,
have they?
the amount of time I have spent wishing upon wishing that someone will redo Mass Effect 1 with the Mass Effect 3 graphics and HUDs.
Yeah,
And then
that's also one.
that would just make I would just like die in a pool of happiness
yeah, I mean,
at that point.
most of their games, like Baldur's Gate 1 and 2, Knights of the Old Republic, the first two Mass Effect games, like maybe Dragon Age Origins as well, and Fallout, as we're talking about those. I want those remastered and redone. There's a lot of things that companies, like, if they they have a dry spot and whatever, like, okay, let's just push out the remaster or a remake or whatever. And I think that could be brilliant, but I don't know.
And of course, don't forget Spyro.
Yeah.
Spyro is actually being remastered. It's coming.
Yeah.
And when it does, I'm going to be all over that like a bad rash.
Yeah. But back on the PlayStation 1 days, basically the only games I played with friends on the PlayStation 1 was Tekken 3. So
Really?
I was never really a PlayStation 1 guy. We were more N64 over here. So
Fat boys.
yeah, there's a lot
There
of
you were, playing your Resident Evil 4 and your Mario Kart 64 and
exactly.
GoldenEye.
Exactly. A lot of James Bond, a lot of Mario, a lot of Zelda, a lot of Smash.
Yes.
That was what we were spending our time in. But the
I was
PlayStation,
spending my time playing Time Crisis.
yeah, Time Crisis were great as well. PlayStation 2 though was when we got into the PlayStation side of things. Mainly with Final Fantasy X when it was released back in the really weird game when you look back at it, but we had a ton of fun with it. Sunk so many hours into that. All right. I don't think there's too much else we can take from the Game Informer interview with James Ohlen. It's something that if you go to Game Informer, James Informer, that's your new, that's the James.
I am the James Informer.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's gonna be in your news, gaming news website, but maybe it's just your Transformers alter ego. James Informer.
Nice.
So, yeah, if you want to continue reading this, it's a really nice interview. It's really personal and it goes on for. There's a lot of things that we hadn't talked about when it comes to that. I just wanted to bring up the most relevant key points to talk about there. But yeah, that's actually going to be it for the first segment of the show. We've done 1 hour so far, and we got a little bit of time to go. And the last segment, we're going to give you suggestions of what you can enjoy yourself with or entertain yourself with until next week, or maybe more than that. Probably more than that, at least with my suggestions this week. So, I'm going to give the honor to James to see if you have something.
I do. I have been very much enjoying the TV drama Versailles, which is on BBC, and they have just now finished the third season. And I believe seasons 1 and 2 are available on DVD. I don't think season 3 is on DVD just yet, but it may well be because I believe it came out in America first and we had it later because of rights and stuff.
Yeah.
But yes, it's a fantastic drama series. It follows Louis the 14th And as the name would suggest, it's all around the Palace of Versailles, which Louis XIV had constructed. And Louis XIV is played by George Blagden, who is a fantastic actor. I'm really, really liking his work.
Yeah.
And there's the usual sort of modern day TV drama about it. There's politics and a lot of intrigue, twisting around all over the place, and a lot of Renaissance French being very Renaissance and French, which is very appealing for some. But the series has improved as they've gone on. And clearly, they've got more funding with the success, so they've been able to build the bigger sets and bigger dramatizations. So that's certainly been impressive. So I would very much recommend Versailles to anyone who's looking to find a new drama to watch.
Right, cool. Interesting. I heard a lot of people talk good about The Handmaid's Tale. A Handmaid's Tale as well.
The Handmaid's Tale. I haven't watched that yet. That is on my list.
My girlfriend watches that one, but it's just so dark, and I don't really know if I'm in the mood to. Like it's seriously, it's sometimes like, what are they doing? How can it be this dark? Especially if you have kids on your own, then you can really connect. So yeah, but
fair enough.
Yeah,
I'm not spoiling it. I'm going into it completely blind.
Yeah, that's probably the best way to do series overall.
Absolutely, go into it afresh with a open mind, and just see how much it freaks the crap out of you.
Yeah. It's interesting. Gotta say that. It's really interesting. Ignoring Josh's comment in the chat there as well. Per his request. So, my suggestions this week, I'm gonna do a sheet and do two, but they're on the same vein, basically. So, one thing that has really been a trend the last, I would say, 10 or 15 years when it comes to anime and manga is having a protagonist that for some reason ends up in a world that is very similar to an MMO. But they can't get out of it, or they're locked inside of there, or their soul is transferred to a new body inside of this MMO world. And a lot of things happen. So, going on this trend, there's new stuff coming up. There's a lot of bad stuff coming up, but there's a lot of good stuff as well. Something that is universally pretty much loved and liked is Sword Art Online. With the first season, I didn't really like season 2, but that's not the one that I'm going to talk about today. I'm going to talk about Overlord, which I just like the title of the. I'm watching the anime Overlord, and it has a really nice spin. I was talking that The Handmaid's Tale was too dark. For me, when it comes to stuff being dark, I really like horror stuff when we're talking about monsters or horror movies. When it comes to dramatization that is really dark, that's when I get a little bit spooked. So I can take horror, but when it comes to dark, realistic things, that's where I'm,
a little too close to the mark.
Yeah, basically. So Overlord is this it's this guy that has been playing this VR MMORPG. So they're playing in a MMORPG in a virtual reality setting, and it's one of the most popular ones that are out there. And apparently, for some reason, it's been going on for years and years, and the servers are supposed to shut down. And all of his guildmates, they're one of the biggest guilds in this game, and all of his guildmates are quitting and they're leaving, and he just wants to stay there until the servers go down. To sort of like the captain going down with the ship. But then after the servers go down, he wakes up again in this world as his character, and his character is this guy that I guess you could say is the Overlord. It's a big skeleton guy with a big shoulders and a big he's like a super mage, and
Skeletor.
Yeah, basically. And he's not really a good guy. One of the first things he says in episode 1 is that I wonder if we should take over this world or conquer this world. Maybe that could be fun. So he always has an agenda, and all of the characters that he's interacting with are NPCs that they had in this guild hall that were protecting all of their stuff. They're suddenly coming to life and get their own personality and whatnot. And it's just a really interesting spin on the take of this, getting locked in an MMO world, and you can't get out of it, and you have to do the best of what you have. So yeah, really enjoying that one. And also on the same note, I'm listening to a book series called The Land, which is a fantasy series. I guess you could call it an epic fantasy series. In the same vein, actually. It starts out with... It was really weird in the beginning, but I guess it makes more sense later on. I was like, isn't this a fantasy book? But it sounded a little bit more sci-fi. So there was these alien creatures that talk about them watching the humans for very long and looking at what they're interested at and what kind of interest they have. And gaming is something that they got stuck on. So they sort of release a virtual reality MMO. It's sort of inspired by Ready Player One. In that vein, a game like that, if you've seen that movie or read the book, a game like that you get really immersed in, and it's based upon a real existing world that is sort of like an MMO. So there is suddenly the game, just the characters in the game, they get moved to the land, the real land, and wake up there. But there's still a lot of game mechanics in this world, so he has level experience, he has different skills that he can level up and whatnot, he has abilities, and it's really silly, and the humor is great in the book. They're not taking themselves seriously at all, which was, I was thinking that it was going to be another epic fantasy journey, which I've read a lot of recently. But it's really not, and they're not taking themselves too seriously. A lot of, if you're a gamer, you're gonna appreciate the Land series, because, yeah, well, it's just, it's epic fantasy with a touch of gaming humor through all of it, and it's got excellent reviews on Audible. Like, I think it's got 4.8 out of 5 stars, and there's so many reviews, so like a couple of thousand.
Good.
So yeah, and every book in the series, I think there's 7 books out released so far, at least on Audible, and yeah, each one of them has excellent review scores from at least customer reviews. So yeah, really enjoying that one so far. So
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Cool.
Excellente.
So those are the suggestions for this week, and with that, we're almost going to say goodbye. First off, I just want to say that please interact with us on any social media stuff, just Guns of Anthem, or send us an email to feedback@gunsofanthem.com. As I said, the VOD will be available after the show.
If you want to be old school and type a message into an email as opposed to typing a message into a chat box.
Yeah. I mean,
it's like writing, but you don't have to use a pen.
Yeah.
So you can like write with the keyboard. It's just amazing stuff.
Yeah.
It really is. It's great.
I'm feeling like the mail email feels a little bit redundant in this day and age, but I'm hoping that there's people out there that still appreciate the power of the emails. I don't know. Maybe I'm the only one.
Well, of course, nowadays at school you can get your exam results through email.
Yeah.
And on a website and
That's
through
true.
text, social media, all of the usual stuff. When I was a kid, we had to go in and get them on a piece of paper.
Yeah.
It was incredible.
Yeah.
Oh dear.
Yeah, it was a lot different when.
Sorry, we'll stop
were in
before we
school.
get too far into the nostalgia trip.
Yeah, basically. So, yeah, that is it for this week. If you just tuned in, then, as I said, the VOD will be available on YouTube straight after this. So, Guns of Anthem on YouTube if you want to check that out. The audio version is going to be out on iTunes. It's going to be out on Stitcher. It's going to be out on basically everywhere where you find podcasts. So yeah. Goodbye.
See you next time, people.
Goodbye, James. Goodbye.
Goodbye, Serge. Goodbye.